We often look at polyglots, people who can just, effortlessly switch between 3, 4, or 5 languages. And we think it's this amazing party trick.
It is pretty amazing. It feels like a superpower.
It does. But after digging into this chapter by Rothman and his team on the multilingual brain, I'm not sure smart is the only word I'd use, I think. Maybe exhausted is a better one.
That is a very, very fair assessment. It's not a quiet library of words in there. It's a constant, high-stakes juggling act.
Exactly. And that's what we're unpacking today on the deep dive. We're looking at a text called Multilingual Lexicon, Phonology, and the Dynamics of Third Language Acquisition.
Right.
And really the mission for us is to figure out the hidden mechanics of that juggling act. And, specifically why if I'm on vacation in Sweden, I might accidentally order my coffee in German.
A very common and, yes, a very frustrating phenomenon.
It drives me nuts. But apparently there's a real reason for it. Yeah. So let's start with the architecture, because I think most of us used to have this fractional view of the brain.
Right. That was the standard for a long, long time. Grosjean's idea. It's this notion that a bilingual person is basically just two monolinguals.
Two monolinguals stuck in one body.
Exactly.
Like you have an English room and a French room in your brain.
Yeah.
And when you want French, you just, walk in, shut the door, and the English room goes dark.
It's a very neat, tidy image.
And it's completely wrong.
Completely. Rothman and pretty much all modern neuroscience argues for a holistic view. It's one integrated system.
So the doors are off the hinges.
The doors are off, the walls are down, all the languages are in the same room all the time.
Which, that sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos. How do I stop them from just crashing into each other all the time?
Well, that's where the idea of speech modes comes in. Think of it less like an on-off switch and more like a dimmer slide.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So on one end, you have monolingual mode. Let's say you're speaking Spanish to a friend from Madrid, and crucially, they don't speak any English.
Right, so I know they won't understand me if I slip up.
Exactly. So your brain has to do some really heavy lifting. You have to actively suppress English. You're not turning it off. You can't. But you're pushing it down.
That takes energy.
It takes a lot of energy. It's called inhibition control. You're basically using cognitive muscle to keep the English beast in its cage.
So that feeling of being tired after speaking another language for a while.
Yeah.
It's not just vocabulary search. It's the actual effort of holding the other ones back.
Precisely. But then, on the other end of the scale, you have bilingual mode. You're at a party. Everyone speaks both languages.
The guard comes down. I can code switch. I could say, pass the sal, please.
And it feels so much easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because that cognitive load, that suppression is gone. You're letting them cooperate instead of fighting.
That makes a lot of sense. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of storage. The text talks about the three-store hypothesis, which I have to say, really helped me visualize this.
It's a fantastic model. So imagine you have 3 warehouses. Store number 1 is the conceptual store.
This is the idea level. So the concept of a cow, the smell, the mooing, the 4 legs, just pure cowness.
And it's totally language independent. There's no word attached yet. It's just the concept.
Right. And then you have store 2 and store 3, and these are the language-specific warehouses. This is where you keep the label cow and the label vache.
Exactly. One central concept linked out to 2 different word forms in their own separate systems.
And we know this is true because of aphasia patients, right? That was the proof.
Yes, that's the clinical evidence. You have patients who, after an injury, lose the ability to speak, but you can show them a picture of a cow and say, is this a farm animal or a pet? And they can classify it.
So the concept store is fine. They know what a cow is.
But the bridge from the concept to the word store to the actual label is broken. It proves the systems are distinct.
That is fascinating. But it also creates a problem. If that concept is shared, does that mean every time I just think of a table, my brain is lighting up the word for table in every single language I know?
That is the million-dollar question. Is the system selective or non-selective?
And the answer from the text was a pretty hard no.
A resounding no. The system is language non-selective. Even when you're trying your hardest to be in monolingual mode, your other languages are humming in the background.
They gave that great example, the picture word interference task. It's a bit like the Stroop test.
It's exactly like that. So imagine this. You show a Catalan speaker a picture of a table. In Catalan, the word is taula.
Okay, taula, got it.
But you write the Spanish word for table, mesa, right on top of the picture.
Logically, you'd think that would just be confusing. It's irrelevant information I should ignore.
You'd think, but you can't ignore it. And here's the twist. Seeing the Spanish word mesa actually makes them say the Catalan word taula faster.
Faster, not slower.
Faster. It's called translation equivalent facilitation. The Spanish word enters the brain, activates that shared concept of table, and that extra jolt of activation boosts the signal for the Catalan word too.
So the Spanish word is giving the Catalan word a piggyback ride?
That is a perfect way to put it. It proves the other language is never really asleep. It's always there, ready to help. Or hinder.
Right, because this always-on thing has a dark side. The text brought up interlingual homographs.
Ah, the dreaded false friends.
Yeah. The example was the Dutch word room. R-O-M.
Which, to an English speaker, obviously means a room in a house.
But in Dutch, it means cream.
Right, dairy cream. So for a Dutch-English bilingual, when they see that word, their brain lights up both space in a building and a dairy product at the same time.
That has to be chaotic.
It is. There's a moment of conflict where the brain has to use context to suppress the wrong one.
And that conflict, that suppression, it takes time. Milliseconds, but it adds up.
It does, and this is what leads to what some researchers, maybe unfortunately, call the bilingual disadvantage.
I have to admit, I did not like reading that phrase. It sounds like a defect, like I broke my brain by learning another language.
It's a harsh term, but it refers very specifically to retrieval speed. The data shows that, on average, multilinguals are a fraction of a second slower to name a picture or retrieve a word.
And they have more of those tip-of-the-tongue moments. I feel that all the time.
We all do, but the text explains it's not a cognitive flaw, it's a math problem.
Okay.
It's the frequency lag hypothesis. So think about a monolingual English speaker. Let's call him Bob.
Okay, hi Bob.
Bob uses English 100% of his waking life. The neural pathway for the word table is a 6-lane superhighway. It's paved, it's fast.
And then there's me, a bilingual.
Right. And you might split your time, maybe 50-50 English and Spanish, which means you only use the English word table half as often as Bob does.
So my pathway isn't a superhighway, it's more of a nice country road.
A perfectly good road, but maybe there's a little grass growing in the middle. The links are just a tiny bit weaker because the frequency of use is distributed.
So I'm not slower because my processor's worse. I'm slower because I'm maintaining two separate road networks.
Exactly. You've traded a tiny bit of speed for a much, much larger total vocabulary. It's a good trade-off.
I can live with that. I'll take the scenic route. Now, so far we've mostly been talking about two languages, but the real core of this text is third language acquisition, L3.
This is where things get really interesting and really weird, because for a long time the assumption was that learning L3 is just like learning L2 all over again.
Just rinse and repeat.
But it's not. The whole dynamic changes because now you have two background languages to pull from. And this brings us to my favorite concept in the whole chapter, the parasitic model.
The name alone is fantastic. It sounds like a sci-fi horror movie.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a really elegant theory from Holinek. The idea is this. When you learn a brand new word in your third language, that word is incredibly weak. It doesn't have any roots yet.
It's a baby word. It can't survive on its own.
Exactly. So what does it do? It acts like a parasite. It latches onto a host word that's already strong forward in your L1 or your L2.
It's hijacking the existing infrastructure.
Perfectly put. The new word has a form, the sound of it, but it's empty inside. So it borrows the concept and the frame, the grammar, from a word you already know.
So, for example, if I'm an English speaker learning a new word in, say, Swedish, and it sounds a bit like an English word,
your brain will automatically assume it shares the English meaning, at least at first. It's a shortcut. You're essentially accessing the new Swedish word through the old English one.
that feels, I don't know, lazy.
It's cognitively economical. The brain loves saving energy. It's like building a temporary pontoon bridge while the real steel bridge is being constructed next to it. It gets you across the river now.
Which brings us back to my problem. The reason this whole chapter felt so personal. I speak English, I learned Spanish, and then I tried to learn Italian.
A classic L3 scenario.
And every single time I got stuck for a word in Italian, my brain would serve up the Spanish word. Never English. Why? English is my native language. It's stronger.
You have stumbled into the war of the background languages. This is the huge debate in L3 studies. Which previous language does the brain choose to be the supplier?
The text had that great case study about Sarah Williams.
A foundational study. She's a native English speaker, L1. She learned German, L2. And then she moved to Sweden to learn Swedish, her L3.
And she used her languages for different jobs, which I found so relatable.
Right. She used English, her L1, for what they called the instrumental role.
The meta-talk.
Exactly. How do you say it? What does this mean? She used it as a conscious tool to manage the conversation.
But when she was in the flow of speaking Swedish and she panicked for a word.
Her brain inserted a German word unconsciously. That's the supplier role.
So why German? Why not English?
Two big theories fighting it out. Theory A is L2 status. Your brain basically categorizes languages. It says, okay, English is home, English is me, German and Swedish. Therefore,
It creates a foreign languages club.
yes. And it tries to keep the native language quarantined safe. So when it needs a word for one foreign language, it grabs from the other one in the same foreign bucket.
That makes a strange kind of sense. But what's the other theory?
Theory B is typology, which is just about similarity. German is structurally way closer to Swedish than English is, so maybe the brain is just being smart, picking the closest tool for the job.
So is it the foreign club or is it pure similarity?
The evidence seems to lean toward a mix, but with L2 status, the foreign club idea being a really powerful driver. There's another study where a learner knew Spanish as a weak L2 and was learning Italian as L3.
Okay.
They kept defaulting to Spanish words even though their Spanish wasn't great.
Because Spanish and Italian are both in the foreign bucket for them.
It seems so. It suggests that when you switch into foreign language mode, your brain pushes your native language way, way down. So you grab whatever else is floating around in that bucket.
Wow. That explains so much. It even explains why it feels like I have a different persona in my other languages. It's like my brain is partitioning my identity.
It is, and it's not just about words. It also happens with your accent. The accent filter.
Right. Phonological permeability, which sounds like a serious medical condition.
It does, but it just means the sounds of languages leak into each other, and not just in the way you'd think. We all know our L1 accent can affect our L2.
An American accent in French, for example.
But it can go backwards. A study found Polish speakers living in Denmark actually started pronouncing their Polish vowels differently.
The Danish leaked back into their native Polish.
Little shifts, but yes, the systems aren't sealed off.
Mm.
But here's the L3 twist, and it comes back to that foreign club.
Okay.
The accent transfer seems to come from the other foreign language. A study on voice onset time, basically the puff of air with a P sound.
Puta, though.
Right. They found that when people were speaking their L3, their accent was closer to their L2 than their L1.
So if I'm an American who learned French, and now I'm learning Spanish, my Spanish might end up sounding a little French.
It very well might. Your brain seems to apply a foreign accent template. It says, okay, we're in foreign mode, activate the foreign settings.
That is bizarre and hilarious. I'm
That's
just
that.
imagining someone trying to speak Spanish with a thick French accent when they're actually from Ohio.
It happens, and honestly, knowing this is so validating. You're not failing. Your brain is just being an aggressive organizer, trying to be efficient by lumping things together.
Trying to help, but maybe not in the most helpful way.
It's juggling. Too many balls in the air.
So let's try and wrap this up. For all the other language jugglers listening, what are the big takeaways from Rothman's chapter?
First, throw out the fractional view. It's not separate rooms. It's one big, messy, interactive web.
A web where all the languages are always on. And you're constantly spending energy just to keep them in check.
Second, don't feel bad about being a split second slower. That disadvantage is just a frequency lag. You're trading a little speed for a much bigger, richer database.
And third,
The parasitic model. Remember that your new languages don't start from scratch. They are literally built on top of the languages you already know, like vines growing on an old wall.
and that L2 of yours often acts like a bully, pushing its way into your L3 because your brain has put them in the same foreign club.
Exactly. The whole metaphor shifts. You're not building separate towers of knowledge. You're weaving one single, complex tapestry.
I have one last thought that's been bothering me since we talked about the parasitic model, and I want to leave everyone with this.
Go for it.
If every new word we learn starts as a parasite, borrowing its meaning from a word we already know, do we ever truly learn that new language as it is? Or are we just walking around with a head full of translations of translations?
That is the provocative question. If the new roots are always, at some level, connected back to the original host, are we ever really seeing the world through that new language? Or are we just looking at our old world through a slightly different window?
Something to think about the next time you accidentally order a croissant in Spanish.
Or ask for cream in a Dutch living room?
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.